So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our part one of three AI in the modern workplace Tech Week webinars. We're going to get started here in just a moment. So, kia ora katoa. My name is Marco Moyo. I am a certified consultant here at Engage Squared. I am also a bit of an AI champion, and that really just means that I'm an AI geek, and I love all things AI. So that's a little bit about me. I'm also joined here in the background by my colleague Ailish, who is going to be sitting in the background, kind of moderating our session today. So she'll handle all of your Q&A while I do the presentation. So just some general housekeeping things to streamline the webinar and delivery of answering all your questions and things like that. You have all been muted by default today, and we will not be using the chat function. Instead, please pop in all of your questions into the Q&A area, and our lovely facilitator, Ailish, will respond to them as they pop up. If there's a particularly relevant question, Ailish will jump in and flag the question for me to kind of go over live. Please do feel free to use the React button in Teams to let us know things that you find particularly interesting or engaging. We love to kind of interact with you, so please do feel free to do that as we go along. Okie dokie. So a little bit about us, Engage Squared. So we are Engage Squared, experts in technology solutions designed with people in mind. We operate through the APAC region, and our focus is on delivering tailored solutions that add value for our clients. We empower teams and individuals to enhance organizational culture, increase productivity, embrace modern work practices, and then as your co-pilot specialists, we lead the way in guiding you towards successful AI integration in the workplace. So we've been recognized as Microsoft Partner of the Year for both 2021 and 2022. And we think that our accolades speak to our dedication and expertise we provide to every project and every single client. So that's just a little bit about us. And then popping into now getting started with our webinar. This is the part one of three. So we have a couple other webinars that are scheduled for Wednesday, the 22nd from 1 to 2 p.m. and then Thursday, the 23rd, again from 1 to 2 p.m. So if you haven't registered for those, please do go and register for those. We've got some really interesting topics coming up. So today we're covering all the AI in the workplace, looking at transforming your ways of working and kind of explaining what Copilot can do for you. In some follow-up sessions, we will have information security and protection. This is perfect for your IT and kind of compliance folks. So do come along to that one or share to relevant people. And then finally, we'll have enabling Microsoft 365 in the workplace. And this is a really important topic in our current space because Copilot is such a new way of working, and adoption is a really important part of it as well. So these sessions are also going to be recorded and they are going to be available on our website. But yes, if you haven't registered for any of the other ones, please do. So a bit of a look at what we're going to be looking at today. So we're going to start with a history of AI. So we'll cover just a bit of background on how we ended up here with the current space in AI. And then we'll look at what AI can bring into the workplace, so how it can best provide value to you and your teams and your organization. And then we'll look at the lineup of Microsoft Copilot and then the value that it can provide for organizations. Then finally, we'll take a bit of a look at Copilot in action, and then we'll go over any Q&A in the end that either has been saved by Ailish for the end, or you just kind of pop in any questions at the end of the webinar, and we will go over those. Okay, so before we kind of kick off into that, we have a bit of a survey for you to fill out here. So you will see these as we kind of go along. We like to interact with you, like I said. So we'll have a couple of 1 to 2 question surveys that you can fill out, and they will give us some insight into kind of what you're seeing in your space. So if you could go through, Eilish is going to pop in a link now for you, and if you could just go through and pop in some answers in there, we should be able to see them here live. So while we wait for you to all populate your answers in there, I'll give you an interesting little fact about AI. So AI can be surprisingly creative. In 2018, an AI model generated a piece of artwork called Edmond de Bellamy that was sold at auction for $432,500. It was the first piece of AI-generated art ever sold by a major auction house, which sparked a lot of debate about the intersection between creativity and technology, as well as things like intellectual property and things like that. But yeah, it was very, very interesting. All right, we're starting to see some responses come through here. We can see that a lot of you have used AI services in some capacity. Most of you haven't used ChatGPT. It was saying 32% of people have used ChatGPT, while about 21% have used Copilot. Sorry for that. See if we can slide this down to see what the other ones are. And very few have used Google's BERT. It's not very well known. Let's see, what excites you most about AI? Time saving. That's yeah, very good point there. AI is very good at saving some time, so interesting to see that. And I'll pop back here just to see what this is looking like. So again, we've still got about 88% of you have tried AI in some capacity, and 8% have not, while 2% are not sure. But okay, let's pop into the next section where we will start to talk about a bit of a history of AI. Okay, so before we jump right in, we'll just go ahead and look at a bit of a process for creating content. So for this, I wanted to create a bit of a slide that shows you the history of AI. Now, because I'm not really a history buff, I didn't know a whole lot of history, didn't have that, it wasn't my strongest skill at school. So instead, I can use AI to help me with this instead of just talking through it. Let me just show you how Copilot can streamline a research process for you. So instead of finding manual search, finding several references, condensing those into a format that works for you, in this instance, I leverage Copilot for the web on my browser to turn this conversational style into something more creative. And I put in a very basic prompt in here with a bit of information on what I was looking for, who I am, and what it is that I am trying to achieve. Copilot has then gone off and gathered a few pieces of information on here for me. It's pulling it together. It's giving me a couple of pieces of history. And now, because I actually used the creative part in Copilot, it's also put in some really nice titles here that I actually quite like that we can see related to our history here. So from here, I can simply just copy and paste this text into a presentation, which is kind of what this looks like here. So that's certainly one step. Copilot has gone through and done a lot of the research for me. If I had to do this manually, it would have taken me quite a lot of time to go through and find all of this information. But now I can just kind of copy and paste it into this slide here. Now that's one step though. It's not really visual, doesn't look great. So now we can pop into the designer in PowerPoint to make the text look a little bit neater and grab some more attention. And then there we have it, research done in a matter of minutes. And what's really great about this specific example is that we have searched through the history of AI ourselves without leveraging Copilot. And I can tell you now, using Copilot used about 2 hours worth of time. But let's talk about the history that Copilot has written for us. So as we can see, Well, starting in the early 20th century, laying the groundwork for AI and machine learning. Early AI programs using natural language like ELIZA. And remember when IBM's AI won that chess game? Everybody remembers that. It's easy for us to think that AI is kind of a really recent technology, but all of this work has been going on over the past century, which has led us to this breakthrough in generative AI, which builds upon the earlier foundations that we started off with and gives us what we've got today. So we're moving from just understanding patterns and behaviors to more generating new patterns and new behaviors. So what actually makes, excuse me, sorry, what actually makes generative AI work and why is it so transformational? Well, first of all, when we say generative, we're referring to AI's ability to create new and unique content based on a prompt or query. It uses the underlying large language models, which have been trained on billions of words to identify patterns and structures within existing data, which can then be used to generate new content. So it's leveraging all of the information it is trained on. It's understanding your tone, your sentiment, and it's using the syntax from the AI models we've just discussed. It then takes your prompts and breaks them down into smaller chunks and patterns, and then returns content based on what it has found in relation to your prompt. So these models are combing through all of the information fed to it to create an output that makes sense. Oh, looks like we have another form here that is maybe not loading for us. We'll give it a moment. Should hopefully load for you here so you can see some results. But Ailish is going to pop in another form into your chat there. If you could go through and complete it, see if it's going to load for us. There we go. And we should see once again your results live here. Or maybe not. Well, I do have the form opened separately, so we'll be able to pull that up and still see all of your results. Okay, here we go. Apologies for that technical difficulty there. Um, but we wanted to look at this. That is not the right form. At some of the concerns that you may have with AI here. So we're seeing that a lot of you have got concerns about privacy and concerns around data protection, with 28% having some security concerns. And then let's see what we've got some other concerns that we have. Oh, yes, hallucinations. That's a really important topic when we're talking about AI. And when we say hallucinations, we're talking about AI's ability to spit out information as if it is fact when it is not necessarily, which is why with everything that is AI generated, we do want to actually verify that the information that we have is correct. We're seeing some other things around interpretation and ethics, and maybe some environmental impact, copyrights and confidentiality, some other things that we're worried about here, things like racial bias and bias in general and some inaccuracies. So a few different concerns here. We'll pop back here as people's more results have been entered. All right, we're seeing that data protection is the biggest concern that most of us have. So we'll switch back to the slide now. And we will pop over to the next one here. Okay, so it's incredibly exciting, but you may be wondering, how does that fit into the workplace? So how does it fit into what me and my team members do every day? Well, we're going to go into that now. We're going to look into why you should bring AI into your organization and into your workplace. So let's take a step back and look at how people are working today. According to the 2023 Work Trend Index annual report, people are struggling. 64% of employees are struggling to find time and complete their work, and they're experiencing 3 times the amount of meetings and calls since February 2020. There's too much work and there's too much in the way of getting things done. I think all of us can probably relate to this feeling of having too many meetings, you've got too much other things to do, and you're never actually getting to all of your key tasks in an efficient manner. So when it comes to AI, 70% of people say that they do feel comfortable delegating tasks to AI to lighten their workload, and leaders are interested in AI to boost productivity, not reduce headcount. So this is one of those concerns we often find with people, is that people think that AI is there to replace their jobs. Well, in reality, that's not really what happens. It's not about replacing people's jobs. It's about improving efficiencies and boosting productivity so that people have got the time, energy, and space to do all of the jobs that are important to them. So there is a story being told here. Using AI can help free employees to do the work that matters, the work that brings passion, leads to innovation, and pushes boundaries. So by implementing AI, we end up with happier employees, more work being completed, and time saved. So Microsoft has identified 3 key pillars where employees need assistance. First, there's the broken meetings. As we saw, 3 times where people are seeing 3 times the amount of calls and meetings, and we can't all be everywhere at once. And because we are already multitasking, it's hard to pay attention. It's hard to really be in meetings and be present and take notes and participate and brainstorm. And it's hard to catch up if you miss any meetings, or if you've had to be in another separate meeting. It's really hard to then catch up on what you've missed. People are in meetings to gain information, but we're finding that 1 in 3 people say that they probably wouldn't be missed if they weren't in that meeting. Then there's the information labyrinth. There can be so much out there that it is hard to find the right information. Conversations are in multiple locations, there's back and forth on emails, on Teams chats, all leading to a lot of confusion and a lot of time trying to sift through it. All of this is made worse when you lose track due to being stuck in some meetings, or out of office because you're sick, or have to attend some other events. So it's no wonder that 62% of employees say that they spend too much time searching for information, and it's rather astonishing to note that heavy email users spend up to 8.8 hours per week on emails alone. That is an entire day lost on just navigating emails. That's where Microsoft's AI lineup comes into play. Now, before we dive into that, though, there's another quick survey to help us understand where most of you are on your AI journey. Hopefully this one loads. No, it has decided that this one's not going to load either. Of course. All right, well, I can pop that one again in a separate window. So Ailish would have popped a link into the Q&A section there for you. So if you can go through and just complete that one as well. And I will now pop it on screen here, and we should be able to see your results as they start to come through. While we wait, another little tidbit of information about AI. So some of you that may be gamers there, or have friends or children that are gamers, you may find that, characters in games sometimes have got a mind of their own, or at least seem to have a mind of their own. Well, this is actually because they're all using AI. So AI gaming is constantly evolving, with characters that can adapt to players' actions, learn from mistakes, and even develop in their own unique personalities. So watch out for those NPCs. They might surprise you. Okay, so now we're looking back here at our results here. So a lot of you seem to be experimenting or piloting some sort of AI in their workplace. We've got 26% of you that are at the very least aware of AI, even if you haven't actually started any conversations or started moving towards adopting AI. At this point, nobody yet that is using AI extensively, which is okay because I mean this is what we're here for, and hopefully you'll walk away from these webinars with something that can help you drive your AI journey a bit more. Okay, so let's pop back into our slides here. Okay, so now we want to look at Copilot's lineup of Copilots. So Copilot on its own is the name of Microsoft's generative AI tool. On a personal level, you can access it through what used to be called the Bing Chat. It's AI-powered search and content generation. When you add in your organization's E3 or E5 license, you can add commercial data protection to the fold, ensuring that your data and your interactions stay safe when leveraging Copilot on the web. On top of this foundation come some of the other Copilots, including Copilot for Microsoft 365, which brings in security and compliance, permissions, data, and access to the Microsoft Graph API, which provides you with organizational content and thusly organizational context. And it is also, and it's also layered across all of your M365 apps that you use on a daily basis. Further building on Copilot for Microsoft 365 are the Copilot for business functions, including sales, service, or finance. So these take Copilot for Microsoft 365 Foundation and levels up to the tool that brings in ready-to-go integrations for Dynamics 365, Salesforce, ServiceNow, or SAP. So how does it all work then? Well, I don't want to bore you too much with all of the nitty-gritty details here today, but at a high level, to zoom in on Copilot for Microsoft 365, the tool that's really designed for everyone, it's powered by OpenAI's GPT-4, which you may know sounds familiar from ChatGPT, which also uses GPT-4, a large language model, which allows it to understand language and create content. We then have the Microsoft Graph API, which allows Copilot to pull in all of the information that you already have across your tenant, such as data, content, people, files, and information in your environment. Copilot then embeds into your applications and provides tailored support in the apps that you use every single day. Finally, Copilot then can leverage the internet to find additional information and content, which really rounds out the response. So if we look back at that example that we saw at the very beginning of this webinar with the research that I did for the history of AI, then we can see how that leverages the internet to find additional information to boost the information that I'm looking for. So to then look at it from a really high level, this illustration shows how Copilot is working in the background. So in your applications like Word, you may ask Copilot to generate an FAQ document based on a file within a project that we're going to call Project Unicorn and your organization. Well, let's look at how it actually does that. Well, the first step, it shoots the prompt to the Microsoft Graph API and semantic index for pre-processing. Pre-processing is really just the AI doing a little bit of research within itself to answer the question of what is Project Unicorn? What is the organization? What context for this reference file? Who is requesting it? What do you mean by FAQ? Etc., etc. So it then translates this into a response for the large language model, turning data and tokens into natural language that you and I as humans best understand. It then sends this back to the Graph API for post-processing, ensuring alignment of the response, and then gives you back, the user, the information that you requested within the app that you requested it. That's pretty amazing stuff, and it only happens within just a few seconds. Okay, so now we know how it works in theory, but what are the practical uses? How does it actually translate into value? Well, it can be quite hard to understand the value of Copilot when we speak in general terms like time saved, improved productivity, etc. Really, we need to look at ways in which we can improve efficiencies across the board, looking at those non-value add activities that are necessary but eat away at the day. Because when you use a tool to improve efficiencies, we can look at the cost reduction, like operational costs or additional tools that can be replaced. From this, we can then start to look at revenue growth. So how these improved efficiencies can mean increased revenue for our organization. So before, we saw how generative AI might be beneficial in the workplace and how we can think about its value. But now that Copilot for Microsoft 365 has been generally available, we have reports that directly showcase its value. In April 2024, a study conducted by Forrester on the total economic impact of Copilot Microsoft 365, they found that organizations leveraging Copilot can increase their top line revenues up to 4% and decrease their operational expenditures by 0.7% and reduce the onboarding time for employees by up to 30%. And then there is all the unquantifiable benefits, like a better work-life balance, improvements to diversity and equity and inclusion, and generally happier, freer, and less stressed out employees. So, if we look at a specific example from a health organization we have worked with on a 180-day pilot, the organization recognized over double the savings in time and thusly in cost as well per user per month compared to the Microsoft Work Trend Index benchmark. So they saw up to 10 hours as opposed to the 4.8 hours that is the benchmark, or about $520, which is almost double compared to the 250 from the benchmark, saved per user per month. If we then use these figures to extrapolate savings over a year, then we could see this organization have savings of up to 125 hours or $6,500 per year. That equates to something about every 300 Copilot licenses generates the equivalent productivity gains of about 20 people per year. So in this example, given a licensing cost of about $30 per user per month, these savings show a great return on investment on Copilot. Some other feedback we've received from early adopters and early adopter pilot programs that we have been involved in show that in meetings, the majority of respondents reported between 69 and 83% improvement on quality of meetings, speed of delivery in summaries and notes, and the ability to take action after a meeting. So this really is just a really rounded way to say that people are finding that they have got more time in meetings, can pay attention more in meetings because they know that they can get summaries at the end of the meeting and they can get action items easily. For document creation, users saw between 63 and 75% improvement in the speed of drafting and completing documents, and a 56% improvement in the quality of documents outputted. While for finding information, 58 to 72% of people found it easier to find information from multiple sources, with a 47% increase in quality of search results. All of this really just shows such great value in Copilot and that it can really save people time and provide real life value. Okay, so before we take a quick look at some of those high value use cases, we have another quick survey for you to tell us what you may already be using AI for. Chances are you're already using AI for something, and we just kind of want to see what that may be. Let's see if this will load for us this time. Oh, hooray. Looks like this one has decided that it's going to work. I'm not sure why the other ones decided not to, but this one has worked for us. So if you can go ahead, Ailish, and pop that in, and everybody else, if you can go through and put through your responses, that would be great. While we wait, again, another little quick fact. I hope you're all jotting these down. They're great, great facts. But Google's DeepMind AI once taught itself how to walk. So using a technique called reinforcement learning, the AI started off with no knowledge of how to move, but after millions of attempts, it learned to walk, jump, and even navigate obstacles like a pro. So, interesting stuff. All right, so we've got some responses in now for what you're currently using AI for. We're seeing things like business cases, drafts or outlines. A lot of people are using it just for work, helping out in some capacity during work. For our pros and cons lists, AI is particularly fantastic at going through large sets of information and drawing out a very simple pros and cons table. We've got here documents, business recommendations, process improvements, brainstorming ideas. Another really great area where AI quite thrives is where we're talking about generating new information, generating new ideas, and brainstorming together, or condensing things that we've brainstormed into something that is actionable and repeatable. So great uses there that we're seeing. Okay, so now we're probably going to start to look at how AI actually works and some use cases in which AI can provide some actual value within your organizations and teams. So we'll start with a bit of a video from Microsoft, which showcases Copilot in Microsoft Teams. Pop that here for you. Fantastic. Okay, so what did we just see here? Well, we saw Copilot in Microsoft Teams, which with a really nice, simple solution there where the user has gone through and has clicked the Copilot prompts button, which is giving them some quick prompts that they can click into and get Copilot to do something for them. So fantastic use case there. Sorry, that has replayed for some reason. Apologies for that. Okay, so now what we can do is we're going to go through and look at a bit of a use case. So we're going to look at an HR team as a use case, and we're going to have a process here which is around hiring a new employee. So let's take a look at this hypothetical use case. Let's say your organization has an HR team that has a process for hiring new employees. How could Copilot be useful to them? Well, first, we can use Copilot's brainstorming capabilities. We let Copilot in Word kickstart the job description creation in Word by simply asking for suggestions on skills, qualifications, and responsibilities needed for the role. This will save the HR team time and effort having to go through and manually collect that information and put it into a document that can be used. We can then move on into another step and reduce the time it takes to screen candidates. So we can expedite that candidate screening process by quickly identifying the top candidates for a specific position with Copilot AI Assistant, which will work for you by extracting key skills, key experience, and qualifications from a set of resumes, streamlining your screening process. So using Copilot, we can go through and analyze a whole bunch of resumes and cover letters that may be provided to us and extract the key ones that provide the right skill sets that we're looking for. This obviously will save our HR team a lot of time because going through each individual CV may take quite a lot of time through your day. And the best part about this is that the HR team can then focus on only the highest quality candidates and review just those ones. So from there, we can help prepare for the interview and streamline kind of the interview preparation process. We can collaborate in Microsoft Loop, which will allow our HR team to all effortlessly work within the loop using Copilot to organize and refine interview questions. So as the team is all in loop, chucking in some questions, chucking in some ideas, Copilot can go through and summarize all of those for us. It can then create tailored questions based on the job requirements that we are looking for and rewrite all of those notes into something that is actionable and can be used in our actual interview process. From there, we can enhance the interviewing process, providing more efficiency. So we can leverage Copilot and Teams to summarize interview insights and generate follow-up questions. So in our example, if we had our HR team having interview sessions with a bunch of candidates, for example, they may be perhaps in a group interview. Copilot can pull out the what each candidate responded to specific questions. It can then categorize each of those and provide a summary at the end. Can also generate a list of follow-up items. For example, if the HR team needed to then do a reference call for some of these for some of the candidates, or maybe check up on a degree that they said they had, things like that, Copilot can then generate some follow-up steps for them. From there, we can then use Copilot in Word to draft personalized offer letters aligned with the company's tone and style, with responses tailored to your needs. So Copilot can then deliver a compelling and engaging communications effortlessly, which can then be provided to our candidates and saving our HR team even more time. Finally, we can then develop dynamic onboarding materials. So we can harness Copilot and PowerPoint, which can create some great PowerPoints for us easily, efficiently, and accurately. It can mine through historical documents to ensure that the onboarding materials remain relevant and adaptable to evolving internal systems, creating engaging PowerPoint presentations and effective training material. So that's a really nice way in which Copilot can provide a lot of value in a HR use case. If we were then to zoom into a specific part of this HR process, suppose that I was a general manager seeking a candidate for an open network administrator position. My organization's policy requires me to send a letter to the recruitment team requesting them to start the recruitment process and create the recruitment assets. So obviously I would need to do this on branded letterhead. So I can now go into Copilot and I can prompt Copilot to draft me a letter that will go to the HR team asking them to create the necessary assets for me to hire a new network administrator. I can provide some basic information about the key skills and qualities that I am looking for from an ideal candidate, and then I can hit generate. And this will go off and start to generate a bit of a letter that I can send to the HR team. Now, please do keep in mind that these have been sped up for the sake of brevity. So Copilot could be slightly slower than this in actually generating them. But we can see now that it's gone off and it's generating a letter for me that includes the information that I've actually asked of it. So if I like it, I can then keep it and I can make any final changes to the file that I may need to. But we can see here that it's drafted a really nice letter, which includes some basic details that we're looking for. It has also filled it out in such a way that it feels like a completed letter that isn't really being jotted down from a few quick notes. So we can see that it's asking for the experience that we told it that we want it to look for. It's asking for the certifications that we're asking for. It's also then gone off and looked at what a network administrator would normally do and what kind of skills and qualifications they may need. And it's also then populated the rest of it for us. This is where the generative AI piece comes in. It is generating this content without me even asking it to. It's figuring out from the context of what I've given it that I am trying to hire a new person who is going to be a network administrator. They likely have to have a set of skills and qualifications, and it's filling out this information for me to send to the HR team. So if we then look at the next phase here, let's flip forward and pretend that I'm now one of the recruitment team. So I'm one of the recruitment team members that's received this letter requesting that I get started on drafting the necessary assets for recruiting the network administrator. So I can go into Microsoft Word, and from here I can see that I've got my Copilot prompt already sitting here. I can go ahead and hit that Copilot prompt. It's going to bring up a window, and I can start drafting straight from here. So I can use a file that already exists and can reference that file. So instead of typing in manually what I'm looking for here, I have the file that the general manager sent me, and I'm going to ask Copilot to, using that file as a reference, generate a job description for me. So I put that into the prompt and I hit generate, and Copilot now goes off and starts to draft a job description. Again, these videos have been sped up for brevity, but you can see here that it is going away and is creating a great draft for me. Now, as it's finished this draft, I've suddenly thought, actually, I probably need to put some information on how to get in touch with us if somebody was to apply for this position. So once it's finished, I've then edited the prompt here and added some more information that I want from it. It's gone off and actually regenerated this into an entirely new set of requirements and information. I can then go in and make some minor edits here. So for example, the date format and or date that I want, I can change that in here. It's also suggested a benefit that isn't offered by my company. So I can go in there and I can go and edit that and remove that out of that document. But otherwise, I'm really happy with this document. It already includes everything that I need, and it has created a really nice job description that can also be used as an advert. Now, if I needed to, I could also go back and actually ask it to redraft this. For example, if I said I wanted to add a few more bits and pieces, I can go and ask it to do that, or I can actually add those in line using the Copilot prompt instead of redrafting the entire thing. So that's another really great example of where Copilot really shines when we're looking at this HR process. It's really helped create this document in a really short period of time. So let's take a look at another example where Copilot can provide value. This is when we are in Copilot in Outlook. So within Copilot in Outlook, in a new email window, we can see our Copilot button up the top on our ribbon. But we can also just start with drafting with Copilot straight from the window, as we can see in that draft there. So I can go ahead and hit that button there. and I can start to give it a prompt. So here I'm giving it a really basic prompt. I'm asking it to help me write an email thanking everybody for attending our 3-part webinar series. I've told it to use New Zealand tone because I know that Tech Week is hosted in New Zealand. And I've also asked it to use Te Reo Māori greetings to make this email feel a bit more local and a bit more New Zealand focused. So I can put that in there. I've also asked it to include some general information about AI as well. And I haven't gone into very much specifics, but I've told it to include that for me. I can also in here go through and change the tone of the email, whether I want it to be direct, neutral, casual, or formal. But I want this to be formal, so I've got formal selected there. You can also make it a poem. But I can also set the length for this email as well. So for this example, I'm going to choose medium length, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit generate. So Copilot has gone off here and has created an email for me. We can see at the top here that it has used the Te Reo Māori greetings like I've asked it to. It's also then written some information in here and has included some information about AI. It has also included the support@engagesquared.com email that I asked it to put in there and has used a Te Reo Māori sign-off. So if I like this email, I can keep it. If I didn't like this email, I could go ahead and chuck in another prompt into that window there and ask it to regenerate this email. But I like this email. It sounds really good, so I'm going to go ahead and keep it. So now this is a really great email, and I could send it straight away from here. But the other thing that Copilot can help me with was coaching on an email that I've written. So this may be an email that I've written or an email that it has written. I can go through at the top of my ribbon here, and I can click the Copilot button, but this time I can select Coaching by Copilot. So once it goes through that, it's giving me some suggestions on how I can change the tone of the email or maybe change the sentiment of the email. It's saying that I could engage my users with a few more questions that I can add into my email here. It's also telling me that I can update the clarity by simplifying and shortening the email. So if I like any one of these suggestions, I can then go back to this email and edit that email and check in the recommendations that it has provided for me. So this is a really great and powerful tool for people that maybe are not so confident with writing emails and need a bit of assistance. Finally, we can see another example here in Copilot within Teams. Again, this is just Copilot in the side rail here. In this example, I can ask Copilot to help me prepare for the Tech Week event that we're currently hosting. I enter a really simple prompt, and Copilot goes off and starts scanning through my emails, my Teams chats, my documents to help find more information that can help with the preparation here. So we can see that it has finished generating this for me. We can see that here it has found 3 webinars, and it's telling me the name of the events, the times that they're being hosted, and the agenda for each of them. It has also found some PowerPoint files that are relevant to the webinars that I can go and check out. And it's finding some web results, but those aren't too relevant for me. We can also see that in each of these, there is these references, which I can click. And if I click these references, it'll take me straight to that particular event or to that particular file if it is referencing a file. But I actually wanted to find me some more files, so I send it another prompt and ask it to find some more documents that will be relevant for this Tech Week webinar. So Copilot then goes off and it scans through all of the files that I have in my tenant, that my colleagues have been working on, that I've been working on, that are available to me. And it's come back with a really comprehensive summary of some documents here that I could use that could be helpful in preparing for this webinar. I can see here, once again, it has the reference numbers, so I can click these and go straight to the documents. It's also telling me who has worked on these documents, what the documents are, and is a really time-saving feature because now I don't have to scroll through a bunch of documents, opening each of them to see whether or not they're the document that I'm looking for and whether or not they have the information that I'm looking for. Copilot is already giving me all of that information straight from the bat. I can also see at the bottom here, it has included all of the documents, and I can click those documents and it'll open those documents straight up for me. So another great functionality with Copilot here. So we've only talked about a few key apps where Microsoft Copilot can use, but Microsoft Copilot can be found across some of the other modern work apps that we use, such as Teams, such as PowerPoint, Excel, OneNote, Loop, and Whiteboard. This list is growing at a steady rate, so more apps and functionality is being added on a regular basis, and this list will just continue to grow. So we can start to look at some of the prompts here that are really useful in Copilot. We've got things like recapping a meeting. So this is if we've been in a meeting, we can ask Copilot to recap it if the meeting has been recorded or transcribed. It can give us a quick summary, which is effectively our meeting notes, where we can find out what was said, what was being talked about. We can find any follow-up items and action list items that could be relevant to us. We've got some summarize email threads here. So if you have been away on leave, or if there's a really long email chain where several of your colleagues or external team members have been having a discussion, you can just come in and select summarize, and it will summarize the entire thread, which will give you a quick summary in a really short period of time. We can also draft emails. We saw that in the example there. We can summarize documents as well. We can also ask Copilot to tell us about a specific topic or project, and it'll comb through our tenant and our files to give us a relevant response. We can ask it to give us some ideas to kind of help us with some mental block and help us with creativity. We can ask it to help us write files and documents, which is an example that we saw again here. We can ask, what did they say? If you vaguely remember what somebody said in a meeting or about a specific topic in a chat, you can ask Copilot to go and retrieve that information for you. Or you can ask it to revise some content for you. If you've created a rough draft, it can revise it for you, give you some ideas, or rewrite that work for you. It can also do translation, so it can translate messages that are written in other languages if you needed it to. So for some more prompts, if you wanted to see some other prompts, you can visit the Copilot Lab, and that will have a great list of prompts that you can have a look at to get you started. So AI is a transformational journey unlike any other we've seen before, and the key to successfully implementing it in your organization is preparation and following a well thought out roadmap from technical readiness to long-term adoption and reinforcement. There is no one size fits all for a solution for all organizations. Rather than simply switching on Copilot for licenses, switching on Copilot licenses for users, it is important to understand the use cases for Microsoft Copilot, how it leverages and accesses information, and how to develop successful prompt engineering. So the way we see a typical AI journey taking place is to start with an art of the possible for leaders, providing an understanding of generative AI capabilities and strategic planning for organizational adoption. Then we want to deep dive into an organization's current technical state to understand what we need to put in place to improve information security and ensure that your environment is ready for Copilot. Once the readiness is achieved, we want to move on to the enablement phase of Copilot, where we find it's often better to start with deploying to a small group of pilot users, where we can really identify the use cases for Copilot and measure the return on investment. And then finally, we want to move on into training and adoption. And with AI being such a new and vastly different way of working, adoption and change management and user training are incredibly important to ensure that people understand the tool, understand how to make it work best for them, and shift the culture to embrace this new way of working. Finally, once we have got all of that done, we can then start to look at some extensibility. We can start to extend Copilot with existing connections and plugins, or look into building custom solutions with Copilot Studio. So what we've covered today is how generative AI has developed over the last 100 years, why you should consider adopting AI in your modern workplace, measuring the value of Copilot and what it can bring to you and your teams, and the various ways in which Copilot can improve some of your processes and ways of working. Finally, we looked at the path to successfully completing Copilot and adopting it in your organization. So what's next? Well, as mentioned, this is only number one of 3 webinars that we're hosting during Tech Week. So we've got another couple of webinars that we would love for you to join us on. We've got the Preparing for Your Organization for Copilot, which is on Wednesday. So if you have not registered for this, please do register for it, and we would love to see you there. And I will be your facilitator for the other 2 webinars, so you will see my face again, and it will be really great to see you there. So, any questions? Let's see if we've got any questions in our Q&A that are yet to be answered.
We do. We have some really excellent questions
right
from the group. A lot of comments and conversation around bias, avoiding bias. Some people have noted that gender bias, especially in Copilot meeting summaries, is particularly noticeable. So someone has asked, how does Copilot avoid bias, for example, in relation to candidate screening?
Yes, that is a great question. So how does it avoid bias for candidate screening? Well, I think the answer to that is that when AI is analyzing any sort of information, it's looking at it from a processing point of view. So it's looking at a bunch of information that's come through, and it's processing what the best skills are for a particular position, for example. So when we go into Copilot, we would want to give it the prompt that says, look for these specific skills, and it should go through and pick out the specific skills that are relevant to the position that we're looking for, and therefore should avoid any real bias against gender or race or anything of that sort.
And we had another question from Chris Hill about can Copilot learn about our organization so that it improves the suitability of its suggestions over time?
That is another great question. So Copilot does learn, but it does not learn about your organization as a whole. Instead, what Copilot does is that it learns through the semantic index. It learns about each individual user and how that individual user interacts and works with Copilot. So the large language model, for example, is not actually trained on your organization. Instead, it's just the semantics that are used to drive responses that are more tailored to you as a user, and they're more at a user level than at an organizational level to avoid conflict.
Brilliant. And in a similar vein, we had a really good comment. If we're using Copilot for recruitment purposes, does Copilot allow or accommodate for neurodivergence? Or is it building a process tailored particularly for neurotypical people? Which is a really excellent question. I think you've kind of touched on the bias element, but also, yeah, one.
That is, yeah, like you've said, Elish, I guess we've touched upon that a little bit. But another key thing to note here is that if there was a custom Copilot solution, for example, that we wanted to make sure that it factored in things like neurodivergence, we can create custom solutions using Copilot Studio, and in which case we can specify that we wanted to be able to actively ensure that it is including as many people as it can, including those that are neurodivergent. And we can also, in the prompts, as we're putting through and asking for information, we just have to make sure that we put prompts that will pull out the information that we're looking for, including people that are neurodivergent. So it's all about engineering that Copilot prompt and ensuring that it's extracting the information that you're looking for, or it's about building a custom solution that meets the needs of your organization or your processes specifically.
And I think if we have time, there's one more we'll try and squeeze in. Can you tell Copilot to ensure a job description or an advert uses words which are more likely to appeal to any gender? For example, gender decoder or Textio?
I suppose you could. You could use a prompt that asks Copilot to ensure that it is using words that are specifically aligned to a specific gender. That would be, I guess, up to you as an individual, whether that is something that you wanted to kind of put in place. You could, but there is some considerations against around that again around bias. But yeah, I think that is something that you would have to take on yourself and on your policies within your organization on how you want to put those prompts into Copilot. Great. Thank you very much, Ailish. Well, I think that is all the time that we've got today for questions. However, if you've got any more questions, please do reach out to us. We're more than happy to talk through Copilot with you and talk through any questions that you may have. We're also more than happy to talk through just a Copilot journey for your organization specifically, and thinking through what it may be that may provide value to you the most. Also, you can come and see us in the other two events that we've got, the other two webinars. Please do pop through and you can come and see us there as well. So thank you all very much for your time today. I hope you all have a great day, rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing some of you in our next webinars.